South Africa's rand has been jittery and showing signs of weakening due to fears of global economic growth, which is dented by a slipping appetite for riskier assets. Today, the markets are eagerly waiting for Cabinet's measures to contain the economic impact of COVID-19. To help give us a sense of what has happened in the market so far and what is expected from the Cabinet meeting today, we're joined on the line by Jimmy Moyaha. He is a market analyst at AxiTrader. Very good afternoon to you, Jimmy. Won't you just take us through some of the major moves in the market today so far?
Good afternoon, Tammy, and to your listeners. We saw the South African markets open a lot weaker today off the back of, as you rightly said, a move off of riskier markets in light of the uncertainty around Corona, but also on the back of what the U.S. plans to do with regards to restarting their economy. For a player the size of the U.S. to want to do something like that is definitely going to have a knock-on effect on our markets. We saw that the JSE was down about 1% not so long ago. The rand opened against the dollar about 0.6% down from where it closed last week. It's currently sitting at around 18 rand 80. So it's nearing that 19 rand mark that we touched on around the time that the downgrade was announced.
Now, the rand looks like it is picking up. Are we expected to see anything on the market side and on the currency side too?
Definitely. From what we can see is that the weakening of the rand and the weakening of the South African market in general are, of course, in light of the situation that we're in. And I think what we're waiting for today in terms of the meeting from Cabinet is going to be very critical in terms of guiding the direction that the market could take in the short term. We've already seen where we're going in terms of a long-term structure. We've seen what the Reserve Bank's put in place. We've heard what our finance minister wants to do from a fiscal policy perspective. But I think in the short to medium term, we really need to see some decisiveness come out of today's Cabinet meeting and from the government, just as in general, in order for us to get some stability into the market at the moment.
Now, do we have any winners or losers at this stage?
I think everybody's sort of feeling it. All industries are down. You've got one or two guys that are performing quite well. You've got companies that are sort of, if I look at Tongaat, for example, they're probably up about 5% on the day. But you've got, at the same time, you've got companies like MTN that are down 11%. You've got other companies like Anglo down 4% or so at the moment. So it really, it affects all our industries. It affects everybody. And I think this is the critical thing, is that the government now needs to take a decision that is looked at from a holistic point of view and rather than looking at it from one particular industry.
You made reference a bit earlier on today about the fact that the markets want some decisiveness coming out of today's Cabinet meeting. When we talk of decisiveness, what exactly are we talking about? What would investors like to hear?
Well, if you look at what's been proposed, we went into this lockdown and there's been a couple of proposals that have gone through, things around the wealth tax, things around the 1 trillion rand stimulus package that could be rolled out and that sort of thing. And all of these things have sort of been tabled before the government, tabled for discussion, but that's just it. It's always just been tabled and tabled and tabled. And, we've had the benefit of some really, really good decision-making and some really integral decisiveness that the government has shown in terms of locking down the country to get us into the situation of safety for our citizens. But I think we're at that point where we now need to be decisive about the economy. We don't have time to hesitate and review the policies, table them before this and do that. And it's time we take a policy, implement the policy, and run with the policy. Because, if we look at it from a realistic point of view, we've been downgraded. We've been shifted down. Our economy has taken that big hit. And if we're going to restart it, we have to trial all of the things that we have in place. We don't have the luxury of formulating a perfect plan, perfecting the plan, and then implementing it. We're at a unique situation or at a unique point where we have the benefit that we can implement a bunch of robust strategies and a bunch of policies that can that the world isn't really doing elsewhere because we're in that unique situation. We had previously put off a lot of our things because we were afraid of the downgrade. We were afraid of the impact it would have on the economy. That has now gone out the window. The economy has taken the hit. The economy now needs to be restarted. And if we trial something and it doesn't work, we move on to the next one. But at least we are making concerted efforts and we're not just discussing them. So now's not the time to table more things before Parliament for discussion. It's the time to actually put those things in place. Whether we get it right or wrong, since the downgrade, we've been given a clean slate, basically. We've got a strong structure, we've got a strong foundation to build on as a South African economy. But what I mean by the clean slate is that we don't have as much of the economic pressures that we had leading up into the downgrade. So we've got the opportunity to try a couple of things that we otherwise would not have tried pre the downgrade situation. So it's a unique situation for us, and it calls for really unique approaches and really unique things to be implemented to move forward.
Very refreshing perspective there, Jimmy, and we are all waiting with bated breath to see what will come out of that cabinet meeting. And as Jimmy was saying there, implementation is what's needed at this time.